Hello, my name is Olurotimi Osha. It is day 27 of the US Israeli Iran war. Um, I don't have to go into how it started. We pretty much know how um, there was a decapitation of the Iranian leadership with the killing of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei on February 28th, 2026, which plunged us into this unnecessary war. And there have been many casualties. Today, of course, I want to discuss, just some of the casualties of the war. Of course, there have been economic and human losses, and of course, Iran's strategy has been to wage an asymmetrical warfare and particularly targeting the global economy and the um, the U.S. economy. So it's very costly for America to continue the war. Of course, it's an unpopular war in America. So one of the uh, tools that Iran would be leveraging would be the public opinion in the United States. And so it's been careful not to launch an attack in the United States to, get, because, surprisingly, 60% of the US population is against this war, which is very unusual. Typically, at the inception of a war, public opinion is usually uniform and support, and so in support of the president's, execution, prosecution of a war. This happened in the Gulf War with, the president enjoying 90% support in approval ratings. But the approval ratings and support of President Trump have plummeted uh, drastically since the inception of the war. But anyway, I want to quickly get into a quick analysis or overview of the losses that have been sustained so far. Um, I'm going to quickly take a look at the stock market, right? If we notice, once President Trump announced that he was doing um, some kind of a moratorium, 5 day ceasefire. He'd initially indicated that he planned on, uh, bombing Iran's energy infrastructure, and he gave them a 48-hour ultimatum. Uh, he subsequently extended that to 5 days, which would have expired tomorrow. But which would have expired tomorrow. And then he indicated that he was in negotiations with Iran in ending the war. And so this Iran and other analysts have said that President Trump probably gave out that misinformation or disinformation in order to manipulate the stock markets, because the stock market and uh, oil prices oil prices were skyrocketing, the stock market was plunging, which is not good for the US economy. And of course, America can only prosecute the war with, you know, with money. If it has the ability to pay the bills for the military and for ammunition to replenish stockpiles. And I'm going to get into stockpiles as well later on. So uh, the stock market went up, and the oil prices, went down to below $100. However, today we see there's been a change again once Iran came out and said, no, that's not the case, and they refuted those allegations and indicated that they were not interested um, in any sort of ceasefire. They were bent on prosecuting the war, to their satisfaction, which meant, a protracted war. Um, we see that it has had its adverse impact on the stock market today. The stock market has since gone up. Uh, the stock market plunged today by about 1%, so it's gone down below 46,000 again. It ended about 45,960 points. And again, comparing that to the year's high in February, on February 10th, just prior to the war, at 50,512 points, we see that's been a 9% drop in the stock market. 9%, that's a lot since the prosecution of the war. And once we hit 20%, we're officially in a recession. So we're almost there. We're at 9%. So that's not good. Oil prices that had gone below $100 went, traded at about $99 per barrel. It went over 108. It went to over $108 per barrel again today. So even though I saw that President Trump had also he's extended that ceasefire, the moratorium regarding his intent to bomb Iran's energy infrastructure to 10 days. And because apparently there's some kind of backdoor negotiations through Pakistan. So we're seeing how that goes. But in any event, there's been a lot of casualties, casualties in terms of, you know, the targets economically, stockpiles. The United States has hit about 1,000 uh, targets in Iran. About it's hit many vessels in Iran. About 190 anti-ballistic missiles, uh, anti-ballistic, sorry, 190 ballistic missile launchers have been destroyed in Iran. Um, Supposedly 140 naval vessels have been destroyed as well. Iranian vessels have been destroyed. Now, these numbers, Iran disputes. So we see that even in the casualties, there are these disparities in the recording of numbers. There's underreporting, there's exaggerating. This is part of the propaganda warfare that goes on in war, as the each side, tries to, uh, you know, minimize its losses and inflate its opponent's losses, right? So that's kind of that's kind of what we're experiencing right now in the information wars. Um, but so the sources of information that I'm relying on would be Reuters, Time, New York Times, and also from Iran's Ministry of Health, and U.S. Central Command, and the Israeli sources of news. So one just has to weigh both sides and balance the information. So Iran's, like I said, Iran's lost about 190 ballistic missile launchers. It's lost about 150, 140 uh, naval vessels. Um, and so on the economically and in terms of stockpiles, America is also facing uh, some severe shortages as well, right? Um, in Israel's anti-ballistic missiles, its interceptors Arrow 2 and Arrow 3. They're being their the stockpiles have been severely diminished, and they're supposed to run out by Friday. And the U.S. as well. Its interceptors, its defense system. That's the THAAD. That's Terminal High Altitude Area Defense System, and there's also PRISM. PRISM is a precision strike missile. There's also the Army Tactical Missile Systems. These are slated to run out of stockpiles uh, as early as April 17, between April 12 and April 17, America would have run out of these munitions, right? So these munitions were supposed to have run out. So, and of course, it needs to be able to replenish them. So, of course, the Pentagon had asked Congress for about $200 billion for these particular munitions that are running out. Uh, it needs roughly $50 billion just to replenish its stockpiles. And while it, considers its ability to maintain deterrence in other potential theaters of war, specifically in the Indo Pacific, right? Um, because that's part of what the Pentagon, the U.S. military, is built for, to be able to serve as deterrence and in anticipation of any other potential areas of conflict. While so as America is focused on this Iran war and it's using all its munitions, missiles and its defense systems that are being depleted, right? It's been taking about 10 to 11 interceptors to deflect one ballistic missile from Iran, or drone attack. And it costs, and each of these anti-ballistic missiles, they cost roughly $5 million to $15 million, right? Defending drones, yes, they're launched in waves, in volumes, but these drones, are cheaply made. The Shahed, about $20,000, right, a piece. So they're the economic uh, cost disparities, right? And that's part of Iran's asymmetric warfare. So it's costing America tremendously. Its stockpiles, right? So the missile defense system that America has, it has ammunition. It's got munitions as well, to defend, that are shot out, right? So about um, half a million rounds, half a million, 20 million millimeter rounds have been shot already, have been fired, um, intercepting Iran's missiles. And that needs to be replenished as well. That needs to be replaced. Now, the sort of, in replacing these stockpiles, the raw materials that go into replacing them is another factor. For instance, in the munitions, um, tungsten is a vital component, right? Tungsten, and America needs roughly 800 pounds of tungsten right now to be able to replace what it's already fired. As of the first 16 days of war, that's the data that I'm using. And guess who actually holds the uh, majority, the world supply of tungsten? 80% of the supply of tungsten is controlled by China. So you see, the war is further putting us into a deeper economic disadvantage with respect to China. So when we're having to seek to replenish uh, a critical component, a raw metal component, uh, which China controls. So it's placing us, in further economic disparity. So that's part of the asymmetric warfare that um, uh, Iran is using successfully against the United States. So um, it's so definitely there's the economic impact, but apart from the economic impact, there's also the losses in terms of human life. What it's cost. So far as of today, roughly it's estimated that 3.2 million Iranians have been displaced from the bombings, right, from the carpet bombing of Tehran and other provinces. And in Lebanon, 1 million people have been displaced. In terms of loss of lives, about 1937 over 1937, 1,937 um, people have been killed in Iran. Iranians have been killed, um, and roughly 24,800 injured. Of course, that's information from the Iranian Ministry of Information, Ministry of Health. However, U.S. Israeli sources report differently. They say 6,000 people have been killed, including uh, military personnel. And of course, the U.S. Israeli sources, they harp on the killing of Iranian military personnel. Um, in contrast, the Iranian Ministry of Health indicate that most of the deaths, which it reports, that's 1937 people killed. They state that the majority civilians, about 1,500 civilians that have been killed, um, you can't just see that as collateral damage. That's like looking like they're war crimes, because civilian targets are supposed to be minimized during war. If civilians are not supposed to be targeted during war. Um, so the U.S. Israeli sources state that 6,000 Iranians have been killed and about 15,000 Iranians have been injured. Uh, in terms of Israel, they state that over 28 people have been killed in Israel, about 28 people or more. And in terms of injuries, over 5,200 injuries have been reported in Israel. Of course, Israel is waging a war on several fronts, right, against Lebanon, right, and of course Iran, and that is uh, uh, reportedly uh, adversely impacting um, Israel's resolve as well, and its resources. It's severely depleting its resources. I said its defense uh, systems have been severely depleted in terms of Arrow 2, Arrow 3. They're supposed to be depleted by Friday, from the report that I read. Um, in terms of U.S. losses, uh, it's been reported that about 15 soldiers have died, about 15 Americans have died, and with, roughly 300 injured. Then, and for Lebanon, over 800 people have died and of over 1,500 injuries. The Gulf states have also suffered casualties, about 26 deaths and 28 injured. Then, in terms of U.S. military bases, I've learned that uh, you many military personnel have left a number of military bases in the Gulf states that were hit. They've been damaged severely, so severely that they've been rendered uninhabitable. So, American military personnel are now living in hotels, right? In hotels. And of course, the Iranian military have accused Americans as um, uh, using the Arabs as human shields by going to live in hotels where there's civilians, there, because of course the military personnel in the Gulf states are the targets of Iranian missiles and their drone strikes, their drone attacks. So that's sort of where we are in terms of the severe economic and human casualties, and the cost of this ongoing unnecessary Iran war. My name is Olurotimi Osha. I'm hoping that cooler heads soon prevail and this needless war comes to an end sooner than later. I'll keep you posted. Thank you.